Hey everyone, I'm Sison, and today we're taking a look at Tamron 70-300mm F4.5-6.3 lens. Alright, so I am currently at Sydney Olympic Park on my way to one of the bird hideouts around here. It's one of my favorites, and I just love photographing around this area because it's just so secluded. There's a lot of wildlife here and I just love the area. I am using the Tamron 70-300mm lens on my Sony A7 III. This is the longest telephoto zoom lens that Tamron currently offers. Thus far, I have been playing around with Tamron's other zoom lenses in the f2.8 range, so the 70-28, 28-75, and the 70-180mm lenses. I have been very impressed with those lenses, and I'm curious to see if this actually carries that tradition along Tamron's mirrorless lens lineup. So this actually goes head to head with Sony's 70-300. I am going to take it to the bird hideout, and I'm just curious to see how well it handles, so stay tuned. Alright, so I quickly want to show you the design of the lens just so you get an idea of what the lens looks like and what you can expect in terms of features. So here it is, the Tamron 70-300. Very simple in terms of the design. There are no switches, but you do get a lot of real estate for the zoom ring, and the focus ring is there as well, both made out of rubber. But if I extend, or if I zoom in, you can see that it extends. The barrel of the lens actually extends about 6 centimeters away from the body, so just keep that in mind. And there is a 67mm filter thread, so if you have other Tamron lenses that and you're using filters on them, you can actually share them with this lens too, so that shouldn't be a problem. Now, taking a look at the mounts of the lens, you can see that there is a rubber gasket that actually helps prevent any dust and moisture from getting within the lens, or between the lens or the camera body itself, so that's actually very handy to have. And you do get a supplied plastic barrel type lens hood, so that does come in handy. It does block out any flare from the sun and other light sources, but it can also serve as another way of protecting the lens from any scratches or bumps that you may incur when you accidentally knock on something. But as you can see, it does make the lens a bit bigger, especially when you zoom all the way in. It doesn't feel too front heavy, so this lens is relatively light for what it is. Although, like other lenses, especially long telephoto lenses, I do recommend to support the lens by using your left hand and just shooting with your right. Very standard, but that's the way it is. And that's pretty much the design of the lens itself, so that's it. Now, for people who are intending to use this on aps-c cameras like the A6400, this lens will give you an effective focal length of 105 to 450 millimeters because of the crop factor, making this a light and ideal lens for sports and wildlife. The lens weighs only 545 grams and didn't feel too front heavy, which is very good news for those thinking of using this as a hiking lens. Now, speaking of hiking, when traveling around with this, I always had zoom creep, which can be quite frustrating because there is no switch to lock it, so just keep that in mind. In use, the Tamron does a good job at acquiring subjects quickly and easily. Now, it's not blazingly fast, but in good lighting conditions, it is very much capable. Of course, you do have IAF, which is quite handy for portraits as well. While filming some quick clips with this, the lens was able to focus quietly on my subject, which gives this lens a big tick when it came down to focusing. The downside with this lens though is that it doesn't have stabilization. It instead relies on the stabilization of the body, which in this video I'm using it with the A7 III, which has in-body stabilization. Now, given its focal length, this could be quite cumbersome, but this is also the reason why the Tamron is so cheap compared to the Sony 70-300mm FE. Let me also stress that this lens isn't particularly the best when it comes to low light situations because of the aperture. But if you are shooting static subjects and using a tripod, you can get some very nice shots. For stills, I was pleasantly surprised with how pleasing the colors were. I even got one printed out on canvas. It was sharp in the centers and unfortunately tends to fall off towards the edges. Vignetting was noticeable wide open, and given its aperture, especially at the longer range of the zoom, the bokeh or out of focus blur wasn't as pleasing compared to other lenses, which is my own personal opinion. But if you're looking to get the blur in your image from your subject in focus, it is very much capable of getting that. There was a bit of chromatic aberration as well, but not to a huge degree where it can become too much of a problem. Overall, given its size, price and performance, this looks like a lens that can be a great option for people who are starting out in photography. Okay, so before we continue, I just want to give a quick shout out to my friends over at Camera Clicks who lent me this lens for review. If you're in the Sydney area, be sure to check them out. They do have stores in Hornsby, Broadway and Ryde, so I will leave a link to their store in the description down below. The Tamron 70-300, I can honestly say I do like it. I do love the feel and the handling of it. I will say in terms of the handling though, there was a lot of zoom creep that I did get, especially when I had my camera attached to my Peak Design capture clip. As it faces down, I always had a bit of zoom creep, so just keep notice of that. That's one of the downsides. Another downside is the obvious lack of stabilization. Now, if you have an A7 III or a camera with stabilization, that will help alleviate some of those issues. But then again, if you have a first gen A7, you may need to really keep notice of your shutter speed that you're shooting at, because you might get some of that blur as well, especially if you're shooting at the longer telephoto range of this lens. Now, it is relatively cheap and lightweight, mainly because of the lack of stabilization, but in saying that, the image quality is good. I would say the Sony is a bit better, but you are paying a lot more for that lens, whereas this one is relatively cheap and affordable. Now, if you want to shoot, say, wildlife like I am now with shooting birds, or if you want to shoot some sports, this would be a good lens to go with. It's recommended for what you can use it for, especially for the price. But yeah, that's about it for me. So if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment down below. And if you already own this lens, let me know what you think of it. And remember to like this video if you found it helpful, and subscribe to my channel for more Tamron lens reviews and tutorials. Don't forget to hit that notification bell to let you know when I upload a new video. Don't forget to follow me on socials on Facebook and Instagram for more sample photos and photo updates. And don't forget to take a look in the description down below for more information about this lens, as well as affiliate links that do help support the channel. Until then, happy shooting and thanks for watching.